You were monitoring deep space audio feeds. It was a quiet night at the observatory. The job was mostly background noise. You listened to the static hiss of the universe. It was the loneliest sound you knew. Then the static changed. A new sound pushed through the void. It was a low, steady hum. The hum came from a place no sound should be. It came from the direction of the moon. Your heart began to beat faster. Sound cannot travel through a vacuum. This was a basic rule of physics. Yet you heard it. The signal was clean. It was unmistakable. You ran the diagnostics 3 times. Every system reported it was real. The hum was not equipment failure. It was not a glitch in the network. It was a broadcast. Someone or something was using the moon. They were using it like a giant speaker. It was Tuesday. Aliens always seem to arrive on a Tuesday. You made the call. Your voice was steady, professional. But inside everything was screaming. You reported an anomalous audio signal. It was originating from Luna. You were the first to hear it. You were the first to know. The silent satellite was silent no more. The world was about to change forever. The world did not believe you at first. A sound from the moon seemed impossible. Experts dismissed it as solar interference. They called it a sensor ghost. But the hum grew stronger. Other listening posts began to detect it. Soon, everyone could hear it in the data. The planet turned its eyes and ears to the sky. The hum was real. Then something even stranger happened. You saw it on the high-resolution telescopes. The surface of the moon was changing. The dust and rock were moving. They shifted like iron filings near a magnet. Great lines were being carved into the plains. They formed shapes too perfect to be natural. It was a script. Humanity watched, completely mesmerized. Every screen on the planet showed the same image, the slow, deliberate etching of our moon. What was it writing? Was it a greeting? A declaration of war? Maybe it just wanted to borrow a cup of sugar. The speculation was wild. The fear was real. Entire teams of linguists and cryptographers stood by. They waited for the message to be complete. The last grain of dust settled into place. A single, massive statement covered the near side. It hung in the sky above us all, a cosmic billboard with an unknown purpose. The world held its breath. It waited for the translation. The message was not complex. It used prime numbers and atomic elements. It was a universal language of science. The translation came quickly. It spread across the globe in seconds. There was a collective sigh of relief. It was not a threat. Then came the cold dread. It was a promise. The message was a warning. It spoke of a warden. The moon called itself a warden. It had watched over Earth for eons. It was a silent guardian against the dark. The message said the dark was coming. It described a star-born hunger, a swarm that moved between galaxies. It consumed all life and all light. These were not friendly neighborhood space tourists. The message was clear. The hunger was a force of nature. It was a plague of living ships. They were drawn to the energy of life. And Earth was shining like a beacon. The warden's long watch was ending. The time for battle was near. The moon stated the invaders' arrival time. It was exact to the second. We had 3 standard months. 3 months to prepare for an enemy we could not imagine. The message ended with a single phrase, a phrase that chilled you to your core. We will try to protect you. Try. The moon was not sure it could win. A new energy signature appeared. It came from deep within the moon. It was a power source of immense scale. The hum you first heard grew into a deep thrum. It felt like a giant heart was beating again, a heart that had been silent for millions of years. The dusty surface of the moon began to tremble. Huge sections of the lunar plains split open. They revealed structures buried beneath. Cities of glowing metal rose from the gray dust. Towers that scraped the edge of space emerged. They were built with impossible grace and strength. They were not made by human hands. This was a civilization beyond our own. Then the weapons came online. Massive cannons grew from the craters. They looked like metallic flowers blooming in the void. Energy grids flared to life across the surface. They formed a shield of shimmering light. The moon was no longer a barren rock. It had become a fortress. This was not your grandfather's satellite dish. You watched from your control room. Humanity watched with you. The fear began to change into something else. It was awe. We were not alone. We had a protector. An ancient, powerful guardian had awakened. The moon was armed. It was ready. And its enemy was coming. The 3 months passed in a blur. Humanity did what it could. We prepared our shelters and prayed. But we knew this fight was not ours. The day of arrival came, right on schedule. A tear in space opened near Mars. It was a wound in the fabric of reality. The first invaders came through. They were not ships of metal and steel. They were organic. They twisted and pulsed with a sick light. Their forms were a mockery of life. They had writhing tentacles and sharp carapaces. They looked like angry, space-faring calamari. They blotted out the stars as they moved. Their presence felt wrong. It felt like a disease. The fleet was a wave of biological horror. There were thousands of them. They moved with a single, predatory mind. They ignored the other planets. Their target was clear. They were coming for Earth. They were coming for the light and the life. They were coming for us. They swarmed forward with silent speed. No communications were sent. No demands were made. There was only the hunger, a pure, relentless drive to consume. Someone forgot to tell them about personal space. They closed the distance to the moon. They prepared to strike at the Guardian, and at the world it protected. The moon did not wait for them to attack. The cities of light pulsed with power. The giant cannons tracked the incoming swarm. You saw the energy building on your screens. It was a power level you could not comprehend. The air in your command center felt electric. The first shot was about to be fired. A beam of pure white energy erupted from the surface. It was brighter than the sun. It moved faster than thought. The beam struck the lead creature. The organic ship did not explode. It simply ceased to exist. It was atomized in a silent flash. There was no debris. There was only nothing. Then a storm of light followed. Dozens of beams lanced out from the moon. They crisscrossed the space between worlds. Each beam found a target. Each target vanished. The first wave of the invader fleet was shattered. It was a perfect, brutal defense. A symphony of destruction played in total silence. For a moment, there was just stunned silence on Earth. Then cheers erupted across the planet. We had a defender, a true guardian. The star-born hunger had been met with overwhelming force. The first battle was a victory. But you knew it was only the beginning. The enemy was vast, and the moon's power was not endless. The global leadership came to you. You were the first to hear the moon's voice. You were the one everyone trusted. They showed you the data. The moon's energy output was staggering, but it was finite. Every shot drained its ancient reserves. It could not sustain this fight alone. It was buying us time. Humanity had to respond. We could not hide behind our guardian. We had to join the fight. The decision was made. You were put in charge of our planet's defense. It was an audacious, almost foolish plan. Humanity's best ship was a glorified tin can. But it was our tin can. We had to try. Your task was to build a fleet. You had to create a strategy. You had to lead our world in a war against monsters. You looked at the resources available. They were pitiful compared to the threat. We had missiles and lasers. The enemy had ships that ate stars. The odds were not in our favor. But you saw something else. You saw 7 billion people united. You saw the best minds working together. You saw the courage of a species with its back to the wall. We might be small. We might be weak. But we were not going to die without a fight. You accepted the command. The real work had just begun. As you worked, a new message came. This one was not for the world. It was only for you. The moon spoke directly into your mind. It was not a voice of words. It was a voice of feelings and images. It was a whisper from an ancient being. It wanted you to understand. It shared its memories with you. You saw the creators of the moon, the Elder Ones. They were beings of pure light and energy. They traveled the cosmos, seeding life. They were gardeners of the universe. They built the moon as a watchtower, a bastion of their science and power. You saw their war with a hunger, an endless, brutal conflict across galaxies. The hunger was their opposite, a force of consumption and decay. The Elder Ones fought to protect their creations. They fought for billions of years. But they were losing. The hunger was too vast, too relentless. The moon was one of their last great works, a final seed of their knowledge, a self-sufficient fortress left to guard promising worlds. The Elder Ones were gone now, faded back into the energy of the universe. Only their creations remained, and their war had finally come to our door. You were no longer just a human. You were the inheritor of a legacy. The invaders were not gone. The first wave was a probe, a sacrifice to test the defenses. Now the hunger knew about the Warden. It began to adapt. The second wave of ships was different. They were smaller, faster. They moved in erratic patterns. They were designed to evade the moon's energy beams. You watched the battle unfold on your tactical displays. The moon's shots were still powerful, but they were missing more often. The smaller ships dodged and weaved. They were like insects swarming a giant. For every one the moon destroyed, 10 more slipped past. Some of them reached the lunar surface. They slammed into the energy shield. The impacts were massive. The shield flickered and dimmed with each hit. The moon's power was draining faster now. It was fighting a battle of attrition, a battle it could not win in the long run. The Warden's light was beginning to fade. The enemy was learning. It was a thinking, strategic plague. It identified the cannons as the main threat. Swarms of the smaller ships dove at the weapon emplacements. They sacrificed themselves to damage the guns. One by one, the moon's cannons began to go silent. The situation was becoming desperate. You knew humanity had to act now. It was time for the flea to bite the beast. Our new fleet was small. It was technologically inferior. But it had one advantage. The enemy was focused entirely on the moon. They did not consider humanity a threat. This was a mistake. You devised a plan, a daring, almost suicidal strike. A squadron of our fastest ships, led by you. The target was not the small fighters. It was one of the larger command ships, a beast that seemed to coordinate the swarm. It hung back, protected by the smaller creatures. Your squadron launched from Earth. We moved in the shadow of the moon. We were a whisper in the storm. The enemy did not see us coming. Your ships carried a new kind of weapon, a targeted resonance torpedo. It would not create a big explosion. It was designed to disrupt their organic systems. Your fleet broke from cover. We fired a single, coordinated volley. The torpedoes struck the command ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the giant creature began to convulse. Its own internal energy turned against it. It tore itself apart from the inside. You sent a message. You have been audited. They did not enjoy the audit. The swarm around it fell into chaos. It was a small victory, but it was ours. It was the cosmic equivalent of a paper cut. A very, very annoying paper cut. Your victory bought a brief pause. The chaotic swarm was easier for the moon to manage. But the reprieve was short-lived. A new warning came from the warden. It showed you an image in your mind, an image from the edge of the solar system. The real enemy was here. What had come before was just a scout force, an insignificant part of the whole. Now, the main armada arrived. It did not tear a hole in space. It was so large it pushed space aside. It was a fleet of world-sized monsters, a living continent of flesh and armor. It moved with a terrifying certainty. It was a shadow that swallowed suns. As it passed the outer planets, it blocked their light. Jupiter looked like a marble next to it, a very nervous marble. The scale of it was beyond comprehension. This was not a fleet you could fight. This was a geological event. This was the "we're here to see the manager" fleet. The hope from your small victory evaporated. It was replaced by a profound, soul-crushing dread. The moon was damaged. Humanity was a gnat. And this was the true face of the hunger. All the star science, all the data, none of it mattered. You were looking at the end of your world. The moon spoke to you again. Its voice was weaker now. Strained by the battle and the coming doom, it told you there was one option left, a final secret held in its core. It was not a weapon in the way the cannons were. It was a final, desperate act of defiance, an ultimate sacrifice. It showed you the mechanism. At the heart of the moon was a singularity engine, the source of all its power. The Elder Ones had built a failsafe into it. The engine could be deliberately overloaded. It could be turned into a focused bomb, a reality-shattering event. The resulting blast would be immense. It would erase the entire enemy armada. The hunger in our system would be annihilated. But the cost was absolute. The explosion would also destroy the moon. It would tear our guardian apart, might even damage the Earth itself through gravitational shear. It was the ultimate gamble, trading the warden for our survival. A choice that felt wrong on every level. The moon had protected us. It had awakened for us. And now, its final act might be to die for us. A heavy silence filled your mind. The final secret was revealed. The decision was not the moon's to make. The creators had built in one final protocol. The ultimate failsafe required an external authorization. From the intelligent life it was designed to protect, it needed a key. And the moon had chosen you. The mind of the warden connected fully with yours. You felt its age. You felt its loneliness. Its long, silent vigil over a sleeping Earth. You felt its fear and its resolve. It was not just a machine or a fortress. It was a being, a sentient guardian with a soul forged in an ancient war. It was tired. It had fought for so long. It laid the choice before you. A simple binary command: authorize or deny. If you said yes, the moon would detonate.